Hey everyone. So I'm going to take some time in this video to go through what you need to make sure you have accomplished before you submit your final draft of your research paper for Project Part 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the written instructions here. Okay. So, you finally reached this stage. We have gone through all of this work, all these project parts to get to this point where you make your final revisions and you submit your final draft, right? Make sure that you have used my feedback on your rough draft to make revisions on your final draft. I give you that feedback for a reason. It is because that's what you need to do. Those are the changes you need to make in order to score as well as possible on the final draft. So I expect you to make those changes so that you can score high on the final draft, right? Use those comments to your advantage. Hopefully by now you've already reached out to me if you had questions about any of my feedback, but if you haven't yet, please do so. You still have time, to work through any, confusion or anything you're still not quite understanding how to do correctly. Reach out. That's what I'm here for. Okay. I also have some submission requirements that I want to bring to your attention so that you understand exactly what's going to, be a bad idea, what's going to help you, right? So the submission requirements here. Says, note, these submission requirements are listed here for you because failure to adhere to any of these requirements could result in significant points being deducted from the rubric when I grade your paper. In fact, even missing just one of these requirements could automatically result in a failing grade, especially any requirement involving your use of sources, citations, and references page, right? Now, if your thesis statement isn't strong, that's not going to just cause you to fail the final draft. But issues involving your sources absolutely could cause you to automatically get a failing grade on the final draft. So please, let's go through these submission requirements and you'll understand a little bit more probably. And then I'm also going to show you the rubric. There's a copy of it attached to the assignment instructions so you can view it more thoroughly. But I'm also going to show it here in the video so that you can at least see a general idea of how you're going to be graded, right? So first and foremost, you need to make sure that the essay is double-spaced, appropriate font. This should already be in place because you were required to make sure that it had all these elements for Project Part 3. But you never know how, what your revision process is like. So just make sure that you still have it typed double-spaced in an appropriate font. Make sure that you're still adhering to the APA style guidelines, title page, proper running head and page numbers, all of those things. Make sure you have a solid introductory paragraph that grabs the reader's attention, introduces your topic, and ends with your thesis statement. Hopefully you had already accomplished that with your rough draft, but perhaps not. If you hadn't, I will have had feedback for you on that. Use my feedback, right? You should have several main points that you'll discuss in order to support your thesis statement. Each of those main points should be explored in as many paragraphs as necessary. Remember, a paragraph contains one idea. If you switch to a new idea, even if it's still under the same main point, you switch to a new paragraph. Each paragraph should contain a topic sentence that introduces the main idea of that paragraph. That topic sentence should also include a transition that links the current paragraph to the previous paragraph. And again, if you did not have any of these things in place for your rough draft, there are probably comments from me in the margin reminding you that you need to revise those things. Each paragraph should be fully developed with the use of sources, but mostly with your own ideas. Remember, 80% your words and ideas, 20% or less source material. If you had overused source material in your rough draft, there will be comments from me. reminding you that you need to cut back on the source usage, add in more of your own ideas, right? Each paragraph should end with a concluding statement that wraps up the paragraph's main point. Your own ideas and words at the end of the paragraph, not a quote from a source. The essay should have a fully developed concluding paragraph that not only reminds us of your thesis statement and main points, but also leaves us with a feeling that we have come full circle, right? All of our questions have been answered, leaves us with a final thought perhaps, right? All of that I just discussed, basic essay writing skills, right? Introductory paragraph, thesis statement, well-developed body paragraphs that have transitional topic sentences are fully supported with mostly your own ideas, a little bit of source material, end with a concluding statement. Concluding paragraph that wraps everything up, reminds us of what you discussed, does not bring up any new information or new ideas, and leaves us with a final thought. Basic essay writing skills right there, what we covered in weeks 1 through 2. The essay should use source material from at least 3 to 4 sources. 3 is the minimum. Okay, that should not be an issue, because if you had less than 3 for your rough draft, I did not accept it, and you had to resubmit it once you had at least 3 sources. But again, I don't know. I have no idea of knowing what kind of changes you're going to make in between rough draft and final draft. So just make sure that you still have at least 3 sources that you have used to support your main ideas, right? Any information obtained from a source must be cited with a proper APA parenthetical citation. Failure to provide citations is plagiarism. That'll get you to 0. Just that plagiarism equals 0. Again, if you made these mistakes in the rough draft, I pointed them out and I told you that you needed to fix them so that you could avoid getting a failing grade on the final draft. Make sure you have done so. If you have added things to your rough draft, maybe I said, your main points are good, but they're just not developed enough. You need to, explain them more thoroughly. Maybe you added in more source material. Make sure it's cited. If you don't have the citations, plagiarism, it's a 0. If you have used direct quotes, taken something word for word, make sure it's in quotes. Even if you have the citation in parentheses afterwards, if you don't have those exact words in quotes, it's plagiarism. If you have paraphrased or summarized something from a source, make sure you have put it completely in your own words. Same idea, different words, right? Use the paraphrasing steps that we learned about in week 5, right? Again, all of this is stuff that I would have pointed out in your rough draft, but because you might be making some significant changes, I need to remind you of these things here as well, because I won't be looking at those big changes until I see your final draft. And if you have not remembered these rules, what constitutes plagiarism, how to avoid plagiarism, you're going to get a 0 on the final draft. So please keep all of these things in mind. Please remember that any source that is cited in your essay has to appear on the references page. Any source that's listed on the references page should have at least 1 citation somewhere in the body of the essay. It's all supposed to match up, right? Again, hopefully all these things have been covered in your rough draft, but make sure that you are adhering to these rules for the final draft as well. Make sure that your writing shows a level of voice, tone, and formality that is appropriate to a college level essay. Make sure that you have proofread your final draft before you submit it. Make sure there are no sentence level errors. Finally, please keep in mind that if you submit a final draft that is vastly different from your rough draft, we're going to have some issues, okay? I run your rough draft through a plagiarism checker. I will run the final draft through a plagiarism checker. Just keep that in mind. Hopefully we're avoiding plagiarism completely anyway. But just know that I will be looking at the rough draft as I grade your final draft and looking for what you have revised and changed about it. Okay. Now, The last thing that I want to do is show you I know. We're going to look at the rubric for this course project. I think. Again, it's attached. What is happening? All right. That did not work. Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay. So what we have here, the first category that you'll be graded on is your ideas, content, and conventions. All right. So to get full points or close to full points for this category, your introduction needs to contain a strong, clear thesis statement. That thesis statement needs to include your main points. The essay needs to provide skillful support of that thesis statement, right, with substantial and logical examples. And the essay needs to be clear and interesting and have, a clear and interesting explanation of your ideas. Right? And then you can see as we go down the line here, if you have not quite hit the mark with all 4 of these items, less and less points will be given to you, right? The next category is organization. To receive full points for organization or close to full points, you've got to have a strong grabber or lead for your introductory paragraph that makes the reader want to find out more. The length of the paper needs to be appropriate and flows smoothly from one idea to the next. This is where those transitional topic sentences come into play. The paper is structured well organized, strong paragraph placement, like it makes sense where you have moved into a new paragraph. You have clear topic sentences and smooth transitions between paragraphs and ideas. The final sentences of your conclusion clench the piece well, leaving the reader satisfied, right? And again, the less you hit these marks, the more points will be deducted for that category. Evidence and sources, that's the next category, right? Points of argument are effective and readily followed, like your main points. The support is compelling and specific, targeted. The sources are sound and verifiable. Source information is appropriately cited. The references page is properly formatted, right? So everything dealing with your sources. And the less on the mark you are, the more points get deducted. Language and style, your voice comes through. It doesn't sound like a robot or like this very stuffy old person, but at the same time is appropriate for a college level course. It sounds like you are writing in an academic setting and not texting your friends, that sort of thing. Then we have grammar mechanics and format, right? So verb tenses, well proofread, formatted according to the submission requirements. And you can see each category here. The first category on content conventions, that's worth 30 points. Organization is worth 25 points. Your sources and evidence use, your use of sources, 30 points. Right? Language and style is 5 points. Grammar and mechanics and format is 10 points for a total of 100. So you can kind of see exactly what you need to score as high as possible and what would cause you to get significant points reduced. But this area right here, evidence and sources, right? You look here at this last category, the lowest scoring section. Your argument is inadequate. Like you have not supported your main points. It's flawed, difficult to follow. The support is absent or off topic or insufficient. No sources are used or sources appear to be used but are not cited. That's a 0. Reference page is missing or missing all or nearly all of the appropriate formatting. That's the references page and each individual entry. right? So you can see how you could get a 0 on this for not having, good use of sources and proper formatting. And that's 30 points, right? That's taking you down to a 70 immediately. To keep a 70, you have to score perfectly on all the other categories. Not easy to do. So please make sure that you are taking my feedback seriously on your rough draft, making those needed changes. And if you're not sure about some of the changes you've made, feel free to reach out to me before you submit this final draft. After you've watched this video and looked at this rubric, if you're not sure of something, reach out. Okay. Otherwise, just do your best. Okay. It's due Wednesday night of week 9. If you are not going to meet that deadline, reach out to me immediately. As soon as you know you're not going to meet that deadline, reach out to me, because we don't have a lot of leeway in terms of me accepting it past that deadline. Okay. All right. Good luck. And I really cannot wait